Welcome into another edition of the Our Coaching Network podcast. He is Army West Point head coach Jeff Monken. I'm John Brice of FootballScoop.com. We never have bad guests, but this is an elite guest. Very fired up to have you, coach, coming off a 12-win season, the most wins in a single season in Army history. Somehow you're carving out time for us at the Our Coaching Network podcast. Coach, thanks for joining us, man.
I'm glad to do it. I'm always glad to see you, John, and don't put me in that rare company. It's a lot of pressure saying I'm an elite guest. I'm just going to do the best I can today.
Hey, we got the first ever Buddy Tevens Coach of the Year award winner joining us for the pod. You were a finalist, maybe even got my vote for the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year award. You've done some heady things, but you've had a very heady career. And so I want to dive right in from the outset. Again, Jeff Monken, Army head coach. Your family is football is fabric in your family, and I don't want to get it wrong by naming all the coaches in your family. Maybe I'll let you do that, but what's it mean for you to carry on that Monken name in coaching?
It is awesome to just be a part of this family and to be a part of the tradition of coaches in the Monken family. We all of us that are coaching now are so fortunate to have had dads that got into this profession and meant so much to the communities that they were a part of. And we all saw that. We all recognized what they meant to those players and to those schools and to those communities. And I think that really compelled us to want to do that as well. And they were all very servant minded and were teachers. They were teachers first, coaches who love the game and were passionate about football and competitive, but they were great dads. They were great husbands to their wives. And so my dad was one of 5 boys in his family. My dad is Mike. His oldest brother, Jim, was the head coach at East St. Louis Assumption. And that school is now closed, but was there for, a long time. And then was the coach at East St. Louis Lincoln for a couple of years, incredibly successful. He was the first one to go into the Illinois High School Coaches Hall of Fame. The second brother, Glenn, was the head coach at Highland High School. And Glenn was still coaching 3 years ago. So he's in his late 80s, still travels all over the world by himself. Amazing guy. Brother Bob was the third brother of the family, was the head coach at Lake Park. He became a leader in the IHSA, Illinois High School Coaches Association, and really kind of ran that organization for many years and served the game in that way after he was retired. But he was incredibly successful, a lot of playoff teams. And then my dad, Mike, he was the head coach at Joliet East and then Joliet Central. And the youngest brother, Bill, who was the head coach at Charleston for many years. Now all 5 of those brothers are in the Illinois High School Coaches Hall of Fame, which is just a great source of pride for our family. But then sons of those 5 brothers, my cousin Jimmy assisted my Uncle Jim at East St. Louis. My cousins Tony, who was son of Bob, finished his career at Vernon Hills, was the head coach there at Vernon Hills, and was very successful, started a program there. My cousin Todd, who's the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. My cousin Ted, who was the head coach at, I think, 4 different high schools in the state of Illinois. Myself, my brother Tom, who was the head coach at Casey Westfield in Casey, Illinois for a few years, and was an assistant for a long time. Actually assisted my Uncle Bill at Charleston High for a year. And then my cousin Matt, who's the youngest of the cousins, of all the cousins, and was the head coach at York High School in Elmhurst, Illinois. So just a whole line of Monkens that have gone into this great game. And we just love football. I mean, when we were growing up, it's all we talked about. It's all we did. We spent our afternoons at practice and Friday nights at football games and Saturday watching film of those football games. The Illinois high school football playoffs were always played at Illinois State in Bloomington, Illinois. And so we would have mini reunions on those weekends. There was a Holiday Inn Holidome in Bloomington. So we would all converge there on Thanksgiving weekend, and we go to all the games on Friday and then all the games on Saturday. And we'd have a big time swimming at the Holodome and playing pool and running around with our cousins. And it's just, so those are great memories. But that's just a life of football. And I think we just all grew to have such a respect and admiration for this game and for the people that are part of this game. Either that, or none of us were smart enough to do anything else. So I'm really proud to be a football coach. I love this game and just love what I do, and I still have an incredible passion and energy for it.
I think if I counted correctly, you've had at least 6 seasons of 10 or more wins. So I think the intelligence is borne out on what you've done through your career. But after listening to that dissertation of your family and football, I'm done talking about coaching trees. We're going to start talking about the Monken coaching forest. That's pretty incredible there, what you guys have done. And speaking of incredible, a 12-win season this past year for Army. Just a remarkable year. Soared in the national polls. Had your program in playoff conversation for a really long time. You had your program ranked in the CFP top 25 for part of the year. Just a phenomenal season. After consecutive 6-win seasons, what was the key, or what were the keys, do you think, to have one of the biggest turnarounds in all of college football this year?
I just think it all came together. And, over the course of the last couple of years, we finished 6-6. And that by our standards at this point is pretty disappointing. We had seasons of 8 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins twice, 11 wins, bowl games. And we were playing some pretty healthy competition. I'll say that. And that's that I don't want to use that as an excuse, but LSU and Boston College and Syracuse and people like that we played just the previous year, they're pretty darn good. They're very talented, and they're hard to beat. You have to play really, really well if you can have a chance to beat those teams. And we beat some good teams along the way, and we lost to some teams that probably we felt like we should have beaten. We should have won those games. And I think it was just the determination of this senior class. And we had great leadership in 2024 or 2023, the season prior. Thought we had really solid captains. We wouldn't have finished 6-6 in 2023 had we not had good leadership from within. We started that season 2-4 and finished 6-6, won our last 4 games. And our guys just never flinched. They continued to fight, and they continued to persevere. And that bled into the 2024 season. And I thought collectively our captains this year were maybe as good together and as valuable as individuals, each of them, to our team as any group we've had. And that doesn't mean that we haven't had good captains. We've had some great captains here, but these 4 guys this year were all very different, but they all led in a different way, and in a way that impacted our football team. And in years past, there has always seemed to be that one captain, or maybe 2 of the 3 or 2 of the 4 captains that were more outspoken or more impactful than the others. And this year, all 4 of those guys were outstanding in their own right, and they had a really good supporting cast of seniors and leaders around them. There was just this determination in our unit this year that we were going to find a way to be the best that we could be week in and week out. And that really was the difference. We never allowed any of the successes that we had to affect the next week. There was always just a determination and a focus on the next team and the next game and putting the last one behind us. And after we had the disappointing loss to Notre Dame, who had a great football team, and you mentioned the Bear Bryant Award, which was deservingly so, won by Marcus Freeman. He's a great football coach and did a tremendous job this year with his team. They were well coached, they were talented, and they were just an all-around good football team, offense, defense, and special teams, and they beat the pants off of us. But our guys didn't let that affect them the next week. We had to turn around and play UTSA, and it was an important game. If we beat UTSA, we were going to secure home field advantage for the championship game, which was going to be big for us, and we did. And then beat a great Tulane team in the championship game. Our guys just always found a way, week in and week out, to improve and put the last one behind us. So really, really proud of this group and proud of our team. And hopefully we learned some lessons, and our returning players learned some lessons about leadership and really resiliency and toughness and competitiveness and standards that will carry over into next year's group, and we'll benefit from it.
Well, you talk about that AAC championship game. Again, we're joined by Army West Point head coach Jeff Monken. I'm John Brice of Football Scoop here on the Our Coaching Network podcast. But you talk about that AAC title game. I thought, watched that game closely. I think it was on a Friday night, and you guys sort of took them to the woodshed. And I thought that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from one of your Army teams. And I followed you guys very closely from about 18 on, since I met Paul Berrettini, and we watched the Army-Michigan game, texting back and forth while he was on your sideline up there in Ann Arbor. And a game with two of the greatest coaches in college football right now, with you and John Summerall, two programs whose head coaches draw attention from around the country. What did you learn about your team, or what did you have reinforced about your team that you felt you knew they were made of the right stuff, but you saw something from them in that game against Tulane that was maybe particularly rewarding for you, and also something that you'll spin forward into the future of your program?
Well, I'll say John Summerall, I respect and admire him greatly. He's a terrific football coach. The job he did at Troy, the job he's done at Tulane, the job he did as the defensive coordinator at Kentucky, and he's an outstanding football coach, and they had a great football team. I think everything just went right for us that night. We played really, really well. There was a determination in our football team as we prepared for that game, and while we went through that night of competition with them, there was a confidence and a focus that you have in those championship games, those big games that you recognize. You're like, you know what, we're going to play really good tonight. And that I had that feeling that our guys would play well. But I knew that Tulane had a great football team, and it was going to take a great effort. When we went down on the drive, we were up 14-0, and we had it 4th and goal, or I guess it was 4th and 3 at the 6. It wasn't 4th and goal. We were trying to punch it in or get another first down, and we didn't take the field goal. And we came up short. They actually stopped us for a loss of yardage play on a toss play to the right. And then the next series, they hit a couple first downs, and Ann and Thomas picked that ball off, and we went back down and went up 21-0. It was just, there wasn't ever any panic or disappointment. The guys didn't come to the sideline and point fingers, or they just were going to play the next snap in the next series. And it really was one of the best performances that we've had as a team and a program since I've been here. And you mentioned the Michigan game. Our guys played so competitive in that game against a really well-coached, really, really talented football team. But even in that game, we made some errors that we probably could have won the game in regulation had we not made those errors.
Yeah.
We've played some really good football games and some football teams, but that was one of the best. And I think throughout my tenure here, some of the best games we played, that's certainly one of them. And it came at the right time when we had to have our best performance. I thought it was the best performance of the year for our team. When we had to have it, we got it. I just wish we could have backed it up with another best performance the following week.
I don't even remember what game you're talking about, but I'm sitting here basking in the fact that I was right about something, because I'd felt it was just an excellent performance from your team, and so I'm glad to hear you break it down that way. But I don't think it was an accident, and here's why I say that. Again, Jeff Monken, Army West Point head coach. I'm John Brice. I ask that, or I say that, because you're now 1-0 in an ACC or AAC title game. You won 7 FCS playoff games at Georgia Southern, and you're 5-1 in bowl games, I think it is, at Army. So you have some sort of recipe for big game, postseason, on the line success. Why are you and your programs so successful later in the season in these big stage moments?
I think we work really hard to try to improve our team throughout the year. I think what I've done a better job of, John, over the course of my career is keeping a healthier football team as we go through the season. And I probably didn't do a great job of that when I was at Georgia Southern. And had I done that, sometimes I think had I done that and worked harder at having a healthier team at the end of the year, a fresher team, that maybe we would have found a way to win one of those semifinal games. We went to the semifinals 3 years in a row and came up short, twice to North Dakota State, who was on a great run themselves, coached by Craig Bowl, who's my great friend and
Oh
and
yeah.
a football coach. But even here, just working really hard and recognizing at Army the unique challenges that we have here, and how do we keep a fresh, healthy team throughout the year. And we've done a much better job of that. But every week, we really try to find the things that we can improve on and get better at. And we talk a lot about playing our best football at the end of the year, trying to peak at the very end of the year. Those are the biggest games of the year. Obviously, the Army Navy game and then a bowl game. Those are big football games. So our staff does a terrific job of that. Our strength staff, our training staff, I really lean on them and their input on where our guys are from a health standpoint and what they can handle, but being smart about the way we practice. But I think keeping that competitive edge and always finding something that motivates us to be our best. And I don't know what that is, but I've been proud of our guys and proud of our coaches that we've been able to have success more often than not at the end of the season when it really matters, and that's those playoffs games and the Army Navy games and the you mentioned the championship and the bowl games.
Yeah, again, I want to really highlight 13 wins between FCS playoff, 5 bowl wins, and then that AAC title game. Also 6-3 in your last 9 games against that arch rival of yours. We won't even say the name today, but anyway. Along those lines, you just referenced keeping your team fresher, helping them peak at the end of the season. For the layperson, and you've been kind enough to let me in bed with your team the night before an Army Navy game and then all day on game day, so I've seen it a little bit. But for the layperson, tell us what it's like on a Monday or Tuesday of a game week for one of your players and one of your servicemen at Army West Point, what they have to manage from a class load, from a physical demands outside of football, and all the things that comprise daily life for a West Point Army player.
One of the things I've changed since I've been here, John, is our practice schedule on what days of the week we practice. So we play a game on Saturday. We come back and have meetings and a lift and practice on Sunday. That's not something I had done in the early years of my head coaching career. I really followed the blueprint that Paul Johnson had as a coach, and he was hard to argue with his blueprint. He's really successful and now a college football Hall of Fame coach. But as we recognized the needs of our players here, the study time that they need for academics, the recovery that they need from the schedules that they pull, we found that a Sunday practice and Monday off was going to be better for our players. And that change made such a difference for our guys. And I think that's something that, going back to those teams in 2016 and 2017, really, when we turned the corner, those guys, I think, recognized that as one of the things that made a big difference for them physically. The class loads here, it's almost indescribable. The amount of reading, the amount of time that they have to dedicate to their academics. There is not enough time in the day for them to get it all done. If they eliminated going to class altogether, if they eliminated sports, if they eliminated the military obligations that they have, and they had 24 hours a day to just study, it would not be enough time for them to prepare for their classes. It is
Yeah, it's crazy.
that intense. So to balance all that they have, I can't say enough for our guys. And I don't give them enough pats on the back, probably. I don't want them to think that I'm getting too soft, but they really do have a tough schedule. So they wake up every morning of a class day. So Monday through Friday, there's an inspection. So they report to inspection. That's every cadet in the uniform of the day, outside, in line for inspection, to make sure there's accountability and they're ready to go for the day. They've got a mandatory breakfast. They have classes. Most of our guys have all their classes in the morning. Some have some classes in the afternoon. They have a lunch formation prior to going into the mess hall. Our guys do eat their meals together, eat breakfast together, eat lunch together. There's a Commandant Dean's Hour, which is right after lunch, which there's typically some briefs or some lectures that go on there. And then they make their way up as soon as their afternoon classes are done to the building for treatments, to tape and dress, to get ready for a lift or meetings or practice or whatever we have first on the agenda. And then there's that block of time in the afternoon, which really is about 5 hours from the time that they start here at 2:30. That doesn't include the time getting up here, but 2:30 we start our first meetings or lift, and we're usually done, and they're kind of making their way to the 4th floor of our building for dinner about 7:30. And then they'll make their way back down to the central area of campus, which is where the dorms or the barracks are, and they have evening study period, and evening study period goes till 10:30. There's lights out at 11:30. And they get back up and do it again the next day. So we're squeezing our football schedule in there. But when they get here, obviously that window from 2:30 to 7:30 isn't all meetings and practice. There's some travel time between our meetings and going down to the locker room to get their shoulder pads and their cleats and all those things on. We do give them some time there to get taped, so that the tape is a fresh tape job when they hit the practice field. And there's some post-practice treatments and those things that go on, but that's all part of the process of playing college football. And it's hard to play this sport. It takes up a lot of time. It's very demanding. And so the additional things that most football players do, the extra film that they watch on their own or coming up to get help from a coach, there's not a lot of windows during the day. There's not a lot of time for them to do that. So for the guys on our team that are playing all the snaps that you see on Saturday afternoons, it's the time that they're here in this building that they're getting their training for football. And so what they do in really a short amount of time, and the demands that they have on them, really they're doing a great job. I'm so proud of our players. We practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have a walkthrough and a lift on Thursday, and our players then hopefully get a good night's sleep, probably the longest night's sleep they ever get on Friday night when we go to the hotel, and we get up on Saturday morning, hopefully fresh, and or as fresh as they can be, ready to play the game.
That's fascinating. Again, you're dialed into the Our Coaching Network podcast. He is Army West Point head coach Jeff Monken. I'm John Brice of FootballScoop.com. You just highlighted in great detail the arduous schedules day after day for your players, and yet you've elevated, and your program has elevated, the profile of Army football undeniably over the past decade, especially as you've had 6 seasons, I believe, of 8 or more wins, 3 seasons of double-digit wins, coming off of a 12-win season. Andre Carter drafted a couple of years ago. I think you had an offensive lineman honored with All-American honors this year. How have, and I'm not smart, but I was smart enough to crowdsource a little bit. So Paul Berrettini pointed me in the direction of this question. How have you elevated recruiting at this time because you haven't compromised standards? So Army hasn't compromised standards. You don't shy away from the difficulties that can result in some great rewards. So how have you done it?
Let me just first say that all the success we've had really is on the backs of our players. I haven't played a single snap yet, nor has any of our coaches. So our players have done an incredible job of balancing what they're responsible for at West Point and their college football career and their obligation to their teammates. And it's hard to do. And we've been doing it here for 125 years, and there's not a, and we're still not perfect, and there's not a perfect blueprint for it, but our guys are managing that as well as it's ever been done here. But I think it just starts with the people that we're bringing into the program, the players that we're bringing in. And I don't know that we're so much more talented than we've ever been. I just think there's a culture within our program right now, an expectation within our program for who we're going to be, and that how we stack up against our academy counterparts and how we stack up against the rest of college football. And there's a pride in this program. We're never gonna, today's National Signing Day, you're not going to find us in the top 75, maybe not in the top 100 recruiting classes for the year. But our guys are leaders. They're driven, they're goal-oriented, they're intelligent, and they care deeply about winning. And we try to find guys that are tough, mentally tough, physically tough, guys that are competitive, and guys that are winners. They've won at things that they've done. If they're on a state championship football team, or have been a state champion wrestler, or a winning baseball team, if they've been part of something where they've excelled and been at an elite level from a team standpoint, or even as an individual, they're going to come with expectations to win. And so we try to find as many people that fit our culture and fit the standard of what we're looking for, that kind of have that pedigree. And collectively, these guys get together in this locker room, and you got a bunch of guys that were leaders, guys that are really tough, guys that are ultra competitive, and guys that have won, that come with an expectation. And you put them together, and they're going to work, and they're going to try to make those things happen in this program. And fortunately, we've been able to do that, and just win more often than we've lost. And some seasons, like this past season, just really excel and have great football seasons. But I think it's because of the people that we bring into the program. We've really tried to raise the standard for the athlete that we bring in, from a speed standpoint, from a length standpoint, not necessarily getting a guy that's 6'6", but even a guy that maybe is a little shorter in stature, that's a long athlete, long limbs, and wingspan, and size of his hands, and all the things that the NFL has measured for years that they know are important, not of ultimate importance, but are important. We've tried to do that so that we have athletes to develop. And I think our coaches, our strength staff, have done that really, really well. And we've got 6 guys on NFL rosters, and none of them were 4 or 5 star prospects. I'm not sure any of them were 2 or 3 star prospects, but the development that happens in our program, I think, is something that we take a lot of pride in. And just taking guys that maybe as freshmen, you're just crossing your fingers and hoping they'll have a chance to play someday. Many of those guys end up being really good players, and some of those guys are, well, two of those guys are playing in the Super Bowl this coming weekend.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Wrapping it up here, and you said elite, and you've made this an elite podcast. So here's a couple of really fun ones. 22, 23-year-old Jeff Monken was a GA at Hawaii. What I want to know is, did you become an expert surfer during that time? And then you and your incredible wife Beth have three daughters, and so we've talked about the Monken coaching forest. Could we get our first female addition to the Monken coaching forest here in a few years down the road?
So by no stretch was I my surfing prowess. I wouldn't claim to be anything special, but I did learn to get up on a board.
Okay, all right.
And still enjoy surfing when I have the opportunity. In fact, 2 years ago, our family went to Hawaii, and we were in Maui. In fact, we were in Lahaina, which unfortunately had the tragic fires a couple of years ago that they're still recovering from. But Hawaii is an incredible place. But I told the girls, I said, anybody want to come down and go surfing or go to the beach? And they're like, nah, you go. So I went down to Lahaina and went to a board shop, rented a surfboard, went to the beach. And so, hadn't done it in a long time, being a novice surfboarder. I was attaching the board to my ankle, and the board was kind of sitting in the shallow water. Well, a wave comes rushing up onto the shore and throws the board and hits me right in the bridge of the nose and splits me wide open, and I'm bleeding before I ever got in the water. So that tells you what kind of a surfer I am. But anyway, I love my time out there at the University of Hawaii. That was awesome, and I really have great friends still to this day out there, and it's a special place. Sean Saturnio, our special teams coordinator, and I were young assistants together out there, and we've known each other our whole careers, and he's an incredible coach. So just that experience, did so many things for me, working for Paul Johnson, and the opportunity I had to work for him for 13 years. It really led to the opportunity to be the head coach at Georgia Southern and be the head coach here. So my wife, Beth, incredible lady. I met her when I was an assistant at Georgia Southern. She was teaching school at Creekside High School in Atlanta. Amos McCreary was the coach, and was team teaching a class with Amos McCreary. And so I met her through Amos and through football. And as I tell everybody, she fell for my charm and good looks, which is completely the opposite. She's an incredible lady. She does everything for our family. She supported me and given me an opportunity to live my dream. There's nothing I ever wanted to do in my life beyond playing football, more than I wanted to coach football. This is all I wanted to do. So incredibly blessed to have a wife that supports that. I got three great daughters. My oldest, Isabel, is at the University of South Carolina and is a sports management major. And though I don't know that she's going to coach, she wants to go into college football onto the operations side. She actually just had an internship this past fall with Coach Beamer and the Gamecock football program, which was awesome for her. And we appreciate Coach Beamer. He's an incredible guy, and gave her that chance to do that. So that's one that she might be joining the forest of coaches or Monkens in the football family. And then my daughter Amelia's in high school, and my daughter Evie's in the 8th grade, and they all love just supporting this team and supporting Army football, and I'm very blessed. I got a great wife and 3 wonderful daughters.
That's absolutely awesome. Somebody more creatively gifted than me, somebody who can design plays like you. I need to get to design a Monken Family Forest T-shirt, and we need to run with it. We're sitting on a gold mine. Coach, you've been overly generous, especially I forgot today was signing day. For you to give us 30 plus minutes of your time on National Signing Day, I'll never be able to thank you enough. I'll never be able to thank you enough for inviting me to embed with your program for Army Navy. I've still got the challenge coin on the shelf there right behind us. I keep it there all the time. So appreciate you so much. Congrats, 16-2 in your last 18 games. That also is elite. Army West Point coach Jeff Monken. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, John. Hey, I'll give you an updated coin the next time I see you. It's been a while, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Glad we got a shared friend in Paul Berrettini. What a great guy, and he introduced us, and I'm glad he did. So you guys have a great day. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on with you and beat Navy.
Yeah, that's awesome, Coach. Paul's the man, low key, connected all around college football. Great guy. You're a great guy. Again, this has been the Our Coaching Network podcast. For Army Coach Jeff Monken, I'm John Brice of Football Scoop. Thanks for tuning in.